Welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here for the last webinar in our series. We have a great panel for you today, but first I want to review a few things for those of you who missed the webinar on Thursday. Tara Blair, the Executive Officer of the Kentucky Pretrial Services Department, shared her experiences developing Kentucky's statewide pretrial services agencies. She talked about a few challenges she faced and also some solutions that she implemented. Kentucky continues to be a leader in the pretrial field and can be a resource for you as you implement best practices in your own pretrial systems. We also shared a handout attached in your Handouts tab that will help you as you begin to evaluate your system. If you missed the live webinar, you can watch the recorded version when it's posted on the event website. If you haven't watched the recorded interviews with national pretrial experts, you can do that on the event website as well. These videos feature Judge Ronald Adrien, who recently retired from a 36-year career serving on the bench in Cleveland, and NAPSA President-elect Spurgeon Kennedy, who has over 40 years experience working as a pretrial services practitioner, trainer, and technical assistance provider. The link to these interviews is on your screen, and we'll post it in the questions tab as well. These interviews are only 30 minutes each and will be well worth your time. As I mentioned, today is our final live webinar. This series has really flown by. We have a question for you later about other potential opportunities to discuss pretrial efforts in Tennessee. Stay tuned for that after our panel. But today, our panel includes stakeholders from Davidson and Knox counties who are here to talk about the outcomes they've seen since implementing pretrial best practices. Davidson and Knox have been working hard to improve their pretrial systems over the last several years with grant funding from OCJP. Panelists from both counties will talk about their process, the results they've seen so far, and their plans for their pretrial systems moving forward. I hope you can learn from their experiences and take some of that information back to your jurisdictions. The positive outcomes prove how beneficial pretrial reform can be. Their hard work was definitely worth it.
Thanks, Amy. I'm really excited to have the chance to moderate this panel with our panelists from Knox and Davidson today. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Jessica Hickman, and I am the pretrial manager at the Crime and Justice Institute, or CJI. For those of you who don't know, CJI provides criminal and juvenile justice training and technical assistance nationwide and is partnering with OCJP to facilitate this pretrial series. Today, we have Diana Brady, who is the pretrial program director for Davidson County, Commissioner John Manson from Davidson County, and Judge Patricia Long from Knox County. And I think, Diana, you also have Scott with you, who is part of the Davidson County Pretrial Services Department. Welcome. Davidson and Knox counties both participated in a pretrial grant program through OCJP that started back in 2015 and is wrapping up this year. Through this program, both counties implemented pretrial best practices such as a risk assessment, alternatives to pretrial detention, and least restrictive pretrial supervision options. All of our panelists were involved in this multi-year process and will discuss the outcomes that they've seen after making data-driven and evidence-based changes in their pretrial systems. And they're also going to talk a little bit about what they hope to accomplish moving forward. We have a lot of questions for them today, but I am going to do my best to reserve like 10 to 15 minutes at the end for all of your questions. So please be thinking about any questions you want to ask our panelists as we go. Put them in the questions tab and we'll make sure that we have a chance to read a few of them out loud at the end. So with that, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to spend just a few minutes introducing themselves and talking a little bit about their role in the pretrial reform process. Judge Long, can we start with you?
Yes. Hi, I'm Patricia Long. I'm one of 5 Sessions Court judges in Knox County. And in 2015, when we were approached with the grant opportunity to look into pretrial as an alternative to our jail overcrowding and other issues that we had, we jumped at the chance. And I was part of the we created various teams with all the stakeholders, and we did things like first determine did we need it, second what were our statistics like, which is a very time consuming process with your IT department, your clerk's office, to figure out things like your failure to appear rates and your new criminal activity rates. We looked at everything. We created a tool. We determined what cases what types of criminal offenses we were gonna allow to be on pretrial. And then over a period of, unbelievably, it took a few years, but actually got to the point where we were able to start pretrial in 2018, and we've been going full bore since January of 19, yeah, a year and a half. And it's been very, very successful for us. So I've been part of it from the beginning all the way now to tweaking it still on a regular basis, and we're very happy with the program.
I'm so excited to hear more about it. Commissioner Manson, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is John Manson. I'm one of 10 commissioners we have in Davidson County. We have 5 full-time and 5 part-timers here in Davidson County. We are the sort of first boots on the ground as far as actual implementation of the program. So when an inmate's arrested, we're the ones that make a determination whether they even get to talk to pretrial or not, based upon the matrix and all the different factors that are involved with the tools that we have. So I have been there since we started using the tool from the beginning. So I have a good working knowledge of all the ups and downs of how it works and where it may not work and what needs to be tweaked. And Diana and I have worked well over the last couple of years trying to get it to do everything it needs to do. And I've got a lot to say positively about how it functions. So I'm glad to be here.
Great, and Diana, that brings us to you and Scott. Do you mind introducing yourselves and your role in this process?
Sure. I'm Diana Brady. I'm the director of the Pretrial Services Program here in Nashville. We've had a program since 1971. However, it needed revamping. We revamped it in 1991, and we pretty much copied what Kentucky did at the time. So from that point, it just kind of set stale and did not go anywhere. 20 years later, CJI comes into our lives, and we have a magic button now, and everything's perfect. not perfect, but everything is really, really good. And we have been so happy with the results of this. It's just want as much as we can to reach out to other counties and network as much as we can, and because I know that people just do not know what this can do for their community, their county. It's amazing. So, Scott, you want to say something?
And I'm Scott Roberts. I'm program supervisor with Pretrial Services in Nashville. I'm kind of her right-hand man, and I'm the one that takes care of all the stuff, so she doesn't have to. Personnel issues, scheduling, and all that stuff.
All the dirty work.
Yeah, that's not so fun. So it's good to meet everyone.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and I'm excited to hear more about how you got your program started. The first question I have is actually for Diana. Davidson County participated in this project starting in 2015, which has been a few years now. So since then, what improvements have you seen in your pretrial system?
The first and most important one, of course, is that it has doubled our numbers of release. That in itself was something that we really were impressed by. That we closed, it has doubled our numbers so much that we've actually closed a facility. One of our facilities has been closed. So there's no overcrowding problem in Davidson County. That's been a huge help with that. Also, the tool has also helped us as an agency in the fact that our screeners now are, there's the bias that was there before is not there now because of the tool. So therefore, we get out more people that are supposed to be getting out, as opposed to, the human factor of, shall we get this person out? Shall we not get this person out? So that has helped us a lot. And it's also helped us identify performance issues that we may have had in the past. Really, overall, I can't say enough good about it.
Great. And Commissioner Manson, you in Nashville, you've been going through this same process, but it might look a little bit different from where you're sitting. So what kinds of changes and improvements have you seen?
Yeah, I've kind of talked to everybody. I really think it helps us make better decisions about who we're letting out, who we're keeping in. Having, quite frankly, just gives us way more information, right? Sort of at your fingertips. You just can look. They've got a score. If you have questions about that score, you can click a button and see a little bit more information. And then if you have even more questions, then you can go into the sort of in-depth look at a person. But we find that we don't have to do as much when we see a good score and we look at what the crime is, and we can really sort of base our decision on whether to let somebody out on pretrial or not based upon just those two things, and not having to really take the time to go in depth and take 5 minutes per case and really look at somebody's record to the degree that we wanted to let them out. Obviously we're still looking for basic things, but we don't have to go in and really sit and think, well, I don't know, is this person going to show up? Is this person going to come to court? Is this person we don't really have to think that hard about all that. We just say, well, their score is good. It's a misdemeanor or what have you. We're going to let them give them the chance, and let them go. And hopefully they come. And as Diana said, our numbers of releases are much higher than they were, which, I think is great just when you think about, especially small misdemeanors where really you just can't afford to get out. You're stuck. And even if I set the bond at $1,000 and, people don't have $100 to give to a bonding company. They just don't have it. And so, sometimes I tell people, your bond's $5,000. If I was in jail, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be able to bond out, and I feel like I make a decent amount, but I don't have $500 just sitting around. And I think the majority of Americans don't. So it's just great. And it really has helped us with our decision making.
That's awesome to hear. And Judge Long, I have a similar question for you. Knox County was going through a very similar process around the same time. What outcomes have you seen?
I just wanted to point out, I've got a few numbers, but from August 2018, we went from 410 people on pretrial to this year, 2,270. And our jail population in 2018 was 1,482. It's gone down to 1,013. So we've grown by leaps and bounds. And as the commissioner was stating, first of all, I just think it really helps overall your whole community, because you're stopping the cycle of potential homelessness, poverty, loss of jobs, because when people can't post their bonds, they start dropping the dominoes. They can't pay their rent, they get fired, all those things happen. And so that's the first most equitable difference that I think is helping every member of the community. And then besides that, it's just safer for people because we've made a better analysis of the individual. We are keeping in people who we should be keeping in longer with the appropriate bonds. But it's just, it's reduced our jail population. I mean, every taxpayer, unfortunately is not aware of things like that. But pretrial really helps the bottom line of every county that is involved in it. And that isn't even dealing with the equity of, people aren't pleading guilty to charges they shouldn't plead guilty to just to get out of jail. And also we probably have, I know we have better court attendance because of the reminders that go out to the defendant. We have versus just bond, a lower new charge rate, because there's a little bit of hand holding that they probably didn't get before. And all those things seem to be beneficial to all the stakeholders along the way.
Great. This next question I have is for all of you, and there are two parts. The first is, have the outcomes that you've seen aligned with the results that you expected to see? And the second part is, are there goals that you set originally that you're still working toward? And Judge Long, I can just pick it up with you.
Yeah, have the outcomes aligned with what we expected? I would say yes. In terms of, COVID's a little different. We're learning some things about our frequent flyers, the people who are suffering from addiction and chronic alcoholism. who populate our homelessness individuals in town who we see like 2 and 3 times a week, and how to deal with that. We've got work to do, but there's only so much you can do with some of these situations. But overall, the outcomes definitely have aligned with what we expected. In terms of some goals, and if you're not aware of pretrial, like I'm sure there are different things in every city, but there are different levels of it. Like we have level 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure what they have in Nashville, but just if you aren't familiar, what that means is, if you're just a person who's messed up, you've got a DUI that typically appears in court, those individuals do, or misdemeanor theft, and you don't need a lot of supervision. Those people tend to be successful. But if you need more supervision on a level 2 or level 3 because your offense is more serious, or your criminal history is more serious, or your failure to appear rate in the past is more consistent, then this additional level of supervision seems to help get you into court versus just posting a higher bond and we never see him again. What we want to do, I would like to do kind of what Nashville has done, and we're looking into it now. I've been pushing for instead of making phone calls, which is what we do in Knox County, is to do a texting system, and I hope that we'll work toward that. I would be curious to see, and I believe that it would be even more successful because I think people will look at text messages more. I think that's the current way people do with appointments and things. And I'm hoping we'll get to that point. And I'm hoping we'll get to the point. I think Nashville has their pretrial office in the jail. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do that, but I'd like to be able to get better phone numbers, which is always a challenge, or more phone numbers. But I think we're headed in the right direction, even with COVID. And it has been Knox County has been under a federal lawsuit for jail overcrowding for years and years. And if we hadn't had pretrial in place when COVID hit, we would have been in severe trouble with that lawsuit. So I'm hoping we'll get that lawsuit dismissed now. That's one of our goals.
And Judge Long, thank you for describing your supervision levels. And I wonder, just for those of our attendees on who don't have supervision, can you just break down what level 1, 2, and 3 actually means?
In Knox County, anybody who gets released from jail is going to be told to, we give them contact information for pretrial. They're told immediately upon their release to make a phone call to set up an appointment, and they're supposed to meet with pretrial the following day. And if they're a lower level, which is level 1 is the lowest, meaning you need very little supervision, you have very little criminal history, and you're most likely going to appear anyway, they're just going to be calling in. I think it's once a month. They report only that one time, and then they get reminders of every court date. Level 2, the more intermediate person, is going to get the same information, call immediately, set up your appointment the next day, meet and get all your contact information, but they're going to report once a month to their pretrial officer, and they're going to call once a week. I'm sorry, I have to reference this. And then level 3 is you report once a week and you call 3 times a week. So, it's better than just posting bond, truly. It is more, you can tell earlier if you're losing somebody, if they're going to abscond and not show up. You've got good contact information for the DA's office, et cetera. I mean, it's just more comprehensive, and those constant reminders seem to help.
Thank you so much for walking us through that. Commissioner Manson, I'm gonna now ask you that 2-part question, and I'll repeat it. Have the outcomes that you've seen aligned with the results you expected, and are there goals you're still working toward?
Sure. So I think our projected, what we expected was probably less, right? You're dealing with an office. We do a lot. We've got to deal with people coming in and instant arrest. We've got to deal with outstanding warrants. We're dealing with emergency health committals, mental health committals. There's a lot going on in that office. And so the first thing I think everybody thought was another computer program, another something else I've got to click on, something else I've got to, I really, and then we had a training and it was just sort of like, oh, we're going to do this and we got to add this to our brains and how are we going to go through all? I mean, I just being honest, I think that was, I'm a little more tech savvy, I think, than others. And so it was, it was fine for me, but there are some that, really had to get used to the new things and all the new buttons and all the new, it didn't take nearly as long as anybody expected. I think maybe after a month everybody was fine, but the instant reaction was, oh, not more. But so it's been great, right? So having said how much concern we had about it, it's been great. It's been a thing that we can really rely on, like I said before, and you don't really have to question it as much as we thought we would, right? I think when we first got trained, we were given the matrix scores and how they add up the scores, and I had a little sheet that explained how each score was added up, and I thought I was going to maybe have to go in and verify the score and look at their record and do all the math myself, and but once we figured it out, that no, it does it all automatically. You just look at the numbers. The numbers are there. You just look at them. We have a couple of instances where the numbers aren't matching with what we see and what Pretrial sees, and so we're going to work through that. But for the most part, it's been far exceeded expectations, I guess is the best way to say that. Things we're still working toward. This is just personal things I think about throughout the day. I think there's crimes that pretrial should get that they don't get. I think we've got some things that are on that list of exclusions that would benefit greatly from having somebody call and text and monitor them, even though they're, everybody I think concerned about, okay, pretrial lets you out for free, right, as it were, which I think is wonderful. And there's some crimes that maybe for the safety of the city and for all those other reasons don't need that, but I still think they may need a text message and a reminder of some kind. So and Diana can speak more to that, but I like to send as many people as I think I can that qualify to pretrial, just to really give them that benefits of what the program offers.
Absolutely, and I want to just follow up with you. You mentioned the matrix, and is that a release recommendation based on the risk assessment score?
Correct. So we spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings coming up with that matrix score, and it's I wish I had it. I'm not in my office, so I don't have it sitting here with me. It's a basic spreadsheet. It's got Scott may have it. They can pull it up. It's a basic spreadsheet. It tells you somebody's in the green zone, and yes, you can send it to pretrial with no bond or what have you, or the higher the scores get, the less they qualify for services. And absolutely, it's just a recommendation. There's often times where it's not often, we don't do it often, but we do have the ability to say, no, I still want that person to go to pretrial, even though you say they don't qualify, because I think they benefit from it. And so we do have the ability to do it. We don't very often vary from what the recommended score says, but you'll have a new criminal arrest score and you'll have a failure to appear score, and those two things go together, and there's a sort of an XY thing, and you can kind of that. So maybe we can send that out to everybody, but it just gives you there's one for felonies, one for misdemeanors, and it just gives you sort of a basis, right? It's sort of this is where we are. This is what the score says we should do. We're recommended to do that. So, now let's look at everything else, right? So let's start there, and then we'll look at everything else, see what the crime is, see what their ties to the community are. Go through that whole statute and look at all those things. It's funny because it takes me longer to explain what I do than it does to do it. I can probably do it in about 15 seconds, right? But it takes 5 minutes to explain the process. But just going through all those things and having that matrix, which I refer to, I looked at it last week. I mean, I'm always looking at it, just making sure I'm following those recommendations as best I can based upon what's going on with the individual person. So it's a good tool, that the matrix that we've all come up with. It's a very good tool.
Thanks for explaining that. Not everyone knows what a matrix is, so I just wanted to clarify. Appreciate it. Diana, have you seen anything that you didn't expect, or is there anything that pretrial services is still working toward?
No. The one thing that going into this, I will say that Scott and I both, we were like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? I mean, we were kind of a little leery about it because we're going to be putting all of our numbers in one basket, and it's going to tell us, boom, what we do. And we're like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work? but it has over exceeded our expectations, greatly over exceeded. We call it the magic button because it really is the magic button. And it's also helped us with our forfeit rate. I mean, and the new criminal activity. I mean, the way it predicts, and I'm sure that a lot of people know, you get your own system, and we did. We chose to get our own system based on our data. Like it may not work in Knox County, but it works here, and that has been so predictable on every. And Scott and I look at it every day. We look at it every day, and every day we're amazed that it's as accurate as it is. Over exceeded our expectations. So much so we had to hire a new case manager because we just kept getting people out, and we had to supervise these people, and that is the key, is paramount. If you're getting a pretrial service program, good case managers are a must. That they drive the train for everything. And reaching out to these people, and not just to get to court, but hey, this person may need something, a service, or something that would keep them from getting arrested again, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I could write a book on it. I wish we could do a pretrial commercial. I keep saying that because if the community knew just how we were doing things, I think they would feel better about it, because like Commissioner Manson was saying, get out of jail free, I mean, that's the way a lot of people look at us, and I think it's a lot of misconceptions about pretrial. That's the only thing I wish that we could do something about more, but
And of course, when you look at the fact that how much money, not only are we being fair to these people that are getting, being charged with crimes, we're also saving the taxpayers a lot of money, because as of this morning, we had 3,190 people active on pretrial. That's as of this morning. So if you just lock all those people up for one day, I think it costs 110 or 120 every day. So, just kind of do the math and look at what we're doing over a period of months and years.
Right.
And just like Commissioner Manson alluded to, one good thing about this tool, everything's just kind of automatic. It just flows through. The commissioner has the scores. He can make the appropriate recommendation. Our screeners will have the scores. And I mean, from the time somebody gets booked in until the time they're, walking out the door, is about 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So unless they have some kind of a strange hold, like a, public intox or a DUI where they're going to need a sober ride. But I mean, like I said, it's automatic. It moves very smoothly.
Are there any goals that pretrial in Nashville is still working towards?
Yeah, well, we've got the FTA study coming up. Basically what that is we're going to try to drill down on our FTAs. Our FTA rate right now is 4%, which is good, but we'd like to see it lower. I mean, of course, we'd like to see it 0, but one thing we did do for that is we took our grant money and bought bus passes with it. And that's something good, that if you have grant money or if you have money left over, bus passes, it's been a huge help here in Nashville. Huge. I mean, and they can have the bus pass for all day. So if they want to go to the grocery store or whatever. And the text messaging has helped tremendously. But yeah, the forfeit is our goal for the future, and finding out why those people are, and mental health. Our mental health, our BCC is going to be opening soon. I believe it's October 15th, 14th. And when that opens up, we'll be able to divert more of the mental health people that come in that we see a lot, that we're not just letting them out in the streets. They're actually going somewhere to get help. And that's going to be huge for us, because we're seeing a lot of that right now. I know Commissioner Manson can probably tell you too that, and we want to release them because they're pretrialable, but we don't want to release them in the street. I mean, they don't have anywhere to go. So, I mean, that's another one of our goals. We're going to be working really close with our behavioral care people and on that, and we can't wait to get that started. That's going to be really exciting. So right now, COVID has kind of slowed us down a little bit. We were going to we're going to go to NAPSA and learn more stuff, because we've really started. And another thing, if you want to really get involved, I strongly suggest that you do go to the conferences, the NAPSA and the PIPS conferences. We have connected so many resources through these places. And they have taught us so much. I mean, the symposium for one. I mean, when we went to Texas, they're like, yeah, we have a Texas symposium every year, and we're like, what? We got to do that. We need to do that. Tennessee needs to do that. Yeah, I mean, and this symposium was on my goal list, but now I guess I can scratch that one off because we're doing it.
You're part of it. Thank you for being here. And NAPSA, that stands for National Association for Pretrial Services Agencies,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And what does PIP stand for?
Professionals
in pretrial.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're both really good. And like I said, the resources that you get from these places, and like for instance, stakeholders. Okay, one of the most trying things for us was stakeholders. How do we get the right stakeholders in? How do we keep their attention? And how do we make them see that this is a good thing? Because a lot of people were like, no. We're not getting people out of jail. It's too risky, blah, blah, blah. So the more you talk to other people, they'll tell you, okay, well, show them data. Show them data. So, and that's what we started doing. We started showing the judges, hey, look, judge, look at this data. It says if we do this, it's going to work. And that kind of opens their eyes a little bit more. And then like now they're going, why didn't we do this 20 years ago? So see, and if another county hears that or another state hears that from a judge or from a sheriff, then they're going to say, hey, maybe we need to do this pretrial. Maybe this pretrial thing might work. I mean, even your toughest critics can change their minds.
Good idea. Thank you. And I think NAPSA just had their conference over the last couple of weeks, and that might be available online for anyone who's interested in checking that out. Commissioner Manson, the next question I have is for you. In your opinion, what made Davidson County's pretrial efforts so successful?
I really do think it was the buy-in of the stakeholders. We had meeting after meeting, sort of preparing ourselves for it. With you got the judges, the district attorney, the public defender. You've got everybody in the room, the sheriff's office. Everybody was in the room. Police commissioner, everybody was there, and really just hashing out the concerns they had, right? Being able to say, well, I don't know, and I don't think this, and I don't think that, and sort of being able to honestly just have those conversations and saying, okay, let's try it. And everybody sort of really just being on board from the get-go to do it and just say, okay, well, we'll see how it works. We'll look at the numbers. Even though I don't, some people didn't think it was going to work at all, but we're willing to give it a shot. And that was key. I mean, and that can be challenging, just honestly getting everybody in the room can sometimes be a challenge. But once we did it a couple of meetings, then everybody was like, oh, well, when's our next meeting? And sort of was ready to go. And we email after email and Metro Legal sending stuff. And we're just getting a lot of data and a lot of information sort of up front. And then once we started it, continuous updates. Well, this is how it went this month. This is how it went last month. This is how it's going. This is what we can expect. This is what the numbers are looking like. So just really sharing the information, making sure everybody knows what's happening and is it's accessible, and everybody can just call up Diana and say, hey, Diana, what's the, I mean, at the end of the day, it was call Diana. I did it a lot, I'm sure everybody else did. What's it looking like? How are we doing? What do I need to do? Or here's a problem I'm having with implementing, or here's something that I did and maybe you all don't agree, and let's figure out what we can do to make us be on the same page. Just a lot of that, and a lot of open door, open email policies, and let's get this right. She was in our office. We were in a little temporary trailer for a while. We finally got our building back, and she was in our office a lot. She would come by, stop by, and she was like, hey, Diana, I almost forgot she didn't work in that building. She was just there. And I was like, oh, hey, Diana's here. So, but just really just having that level of, it takes that level, right? You couldn't just turn it on and walk away from it. You really had to dig into the data and really look at it. And I think like Diana said, you tell the community, and Scott said, you tell the community that this is the thing we're doing and it's working. We're in the midst of all this request for criminal justice reform and all these sorts of things that are happening. Here it is. You want to talk about what the mental health numbers look like, and the police maybe don't have the expertise to deal with that mental health problem, and how are we dealing with them? And you can really just see, well, when they come in, this is what pretrial does with them, and this is where they go, and this is, you know, how we're making sure to get to court, and this is, you know, so it's just, it really adds a layer of help for the community. And so explaining that to the community and making them see, honestly, is a great thing. People will know that things are moving in the right direction, even if they don't, because this is not something that I don't think it's talked about, right? Everybody will say, well, you know, you talk about policing, you talk about unfair sentencing, you talk about those sorts of things, but you don't really get to this. And I think this is really important in that conversation. How are we dealing with people when they first get to the criminal justice system? Where do they go? What do we do with them? Are we keeping people unnecessarily? Are we letting people out? Are people losing their jobs because they can't afford bail, because they can't get out? Or do they have a mental health issue and we maybe did let them out because we don't have anything we can do with them in the jail, then something else goes wrong, and then they're back the next day because we didn't deal with them appropriately, get them the services that they need. So all of these things it sort of starts right at the beginning. Say, okay, here you are, this is who you are, this is what your record looks like, this is the crime you're charged with, this is what we can do for you. This is how we can assist you to get you ideally back to your life and out of this criminal justice system, ideally. You know, we always have our frequent flyers, and that is what it is, but just trying to make people aware of what can happen. And I think pretrial does a good job of that. And so I think that's really why it's working, getting all the stakeholders involved, and we just need to share it with the world.
And thinking back, is there anything that you would have either done differently, or is there anything you know now you wish you knew when you're going through the process?
I don't know about different. I mean, I think, you know, any growing pains we had were bound to happen. It was a new thing and untested as far as we were concerned. Obviously it had been tested, but untested as far as we were concerned, and just trying to figure out how to make it work for us. And I don't think there really was another way to do that except to go at it and see what happened. And, you know, obviously if the numbers didn't come back that it was successful, we would have stopped, right? So there wasn't really any other way to do it than to just do it. I don't know that there's much more we could have done differently than that. I think a lot of communities that are considering it, that's a big hurdle. That's a big hurdle, really just trusting it and being able to say, yeah, I don't know about this, but let's give it a try is so important. And then, like I said, just talk until you make it work for your community.
And Judge Long, I have a similar question for you. In your opinion, why has Knox County's pretrial efforts been so successful?
I would reiterate what Commissioner Manson said, just the buy-in of everybody. I can tell you when it started, you know, we kind of argued about it starting between the judges, the DA, the sheriff, the criminal court judges, you know, and it felt slow. And once we committed, yes, we want the grant. Why in the world would we not take advantage of this? Let's look at our statistics. Let's see what we can do to help. Then we would meet. That's probably one of the, I mean, in my whole career as private attorney, you know, PD, DA, judge, that we would all get in the same room. And it was kind of uncomfortable sometimes because we were all coming at it from different perspectives, but I think it was beneficial to all of us to do this, even though it was slow and steady. People in different counties will understand once you start looking into it. Each county is going to have its own. You know, when they said things like we're going to create a tool, I was like, what in the world are you talking about? I don't even understand the words you're using. Tool, matrix, whatever. This sounds crazy to me. But you'll figure all that out with their help. CGI was instrumental in making us understand it. And we were not that good. It was hard to get all of us together. You know, when we'd be at one meeting, the next meeting would be 6 to 8 weeks off. And it'd be like, what is taking so long? And it's worth it. It's worth the slow and steady progress, because you're going to get with your own data the appropriate things for your county that makes everybody buy in. And with everybody's participation, there's no reason for anybody to be the lone holdout. And so with everybody buying in, then everybody starts to get encouraged once you kick it into gear. It's amazing. I mean, I cannot believe we've only been doing it full bore for a year and a half, because it just feels like second nature. And for the commissioners out there, just like he was stating, it's not extra work, it's less work. Pretrial is doing the work for you, and it's being done very quickly. Once they see a person's name come up on an arrest report, they're quickly gathering their prior criminal history. They'll put in Knox County, we'll have like highlighted sections that'll say a violation of probation is likely, or they have a hold out of Anderson County, or they've got a child support hold, or whatever, to help you figure out what you're supposed to do. But it's faster, it's easier. It's like takes the decision making, it's analytical. Doesn't mean that the commissioner still doesn't have their own, and the judge still can't request or impose additional things on a defendant. And even when they come into court, we change sometimes or add additional factors that we think are appropriate, but it's really easier. And in Knox County, our commissioners, and I sometimes agree and disagree with this, and I don't know what they do in Nashville, but they'll do things that are actually potentially beneficial to the defendant, because they'll go ahead and order a drug and alcohol assessment on a drug case, or they'll go ahead and order that on a DUI case. So actually that, like I had arraignments in DUI court today, and they're already helping themselves in the potential defenses. Plus, instead of seeing them 2 months later, they're also maybe already helping themselves in their sobriety or addiction issues or whatever, and starting on some of that sort of programming before we even get to them. So it can't hurt, obviously. So I think the buy-in and everybody just being a part of it, and as he stated, it's saving money. There's no doubt about it. I mean, your sheriff will be glad to add additional pretrial staffing as that becomes necessary, as your pretrial numbers increase, because what they're doing is they're reducing their jail staffing. And it's actually a happier type of employment with a higher rate of satisfaction. And I've been told from our sheriff that the jail conditions are so much better. People are individually in their pods and rooms. That creates less opportunities for just all the distractions and the argument and not being comfortable, and creating irritability and unsafe conditions for the people out in the jail. So all around, there's lots of little things that happen that just make satisfaction levels higher overall.
Thank you. And my next question is for all of you, and I'm going to switch gears to thinking back sort of at the beginning of this whole process. We've talked about all the great outcomes you've seen, but I'm interested to know how you decided what to focus on first. And Diana, maybe we can start with you.
Well, the main thing we wanted to focus on was getting more people out of jail, obviously. What do you think, Scott? Probably, yeah. The number one most important thing, and Commissioner Manson already mentioned, was getting the right stakeholders in the room, and getting everybody to buy in, and being on the same page with them was never going to be an issue. We knew. I mean, it was always going to be an issue, but we wanted to make them understand what our primary goal was, and that was get these people in and out that don't need to be in. So I don't, that plus, can you think of anything else?
Well, I was going to say too that the stakeholder meetings proved to be very entertaining.
Oh yeah. As
Commissioner Manson probably can confirm. A couple of times I felt like bringing popcorn to them, because you knew the DA and the public defender were going to, I was going to be like that. But ultimately it got done. I would say that was the hardest part as far as getting things moving, is not only getting the stakeholders put together, but getting the right people from the right offices. It also helped to have a champion, Judge Mondelli. Yeah. He was very instrumental in getting this whole thing up and going. So I would recommend choose a champion that can, kind of hold the torch for you and kind of get everybody motivated, because they may listen to Judge Mondelli, whereas other people in the panel may not listen to Diana or myself. Right. When you have a judge sitting there saying, hey, we need to talk about this, then that's going to be more persuasive.
Yeah.
So that's what I recommend is get a champion and getting the right stakeholders together.
Yeah, and our sheriff even bought in too. Really, very early on, I went to him and I'm like, hey, can you help me get these people in a room? And he did. So, you know, and it may take that. But once you get them all in there and everybody starts talking and you see the benefits, and, you know, we didn't have much to look at on the front end, but now we can show them the numbers and they're amazed.
Mhm.
Commissioner Manson, is there anything from your perspective that you were particularly interested in looking at in the beginning? Like, what about your system made you want to tackle pretrial?
You know, as Diane said, we've had pretrial for a while. I think one of the struggles before we really implemented this tool, one of the struggles was just figuring out who goes and who stays, and figuring out, you know, and we may have our opinions. The pretrial officer has their opinions. Everybody's sort of opinionated about, you know, what do we do, and so. You know, then we're arguing, well, who gets to decide? Well, there are emails. I remember emails. Well, the commissioner has the final say. Well, then the pretrial people get mad, and then, well, but I know these people, and I, you know, and you let them out, and they shouldn't go, and so just all of that stuff was, you know, I exaggerate. This is not at all a frequent conversation. This did not happen a lot, but it did happen. But just trying to nail down what we're doing, I think was something that was important for us. You know, we want this person to go. You know, how do we make that call? And so having a tool that sort of recommends something, then everybody's like, oh, okay, well, that looks okay to me. Okay, that looks okay to me. Okay, well, then we'll do it. You know, that just that sort of fixed that. And then even situations where I don't know. Well, the recommendation says, you know, this, and their FTA score is 0, and you know maybe you don't like them as a human being, but you know, I think he should go. You know, so it took some of those biases out from both sides, right? From both sides, it took a lot of that out.
Definitely.
And people, you know, you got to treat people fairly and equitably as best you can. And whether you like somebody, the way they look, the way they dress, the way they talk, you know, anything, race, sex, any of that stuff, take it all out, right? Here we go. Here's some data on that person. Here's their record. Here's their score. Let's use the matrix. The matrix says this is the recommendation. Their crime is low level. Go away, you know, go away. You know, go to court. Here's your court date. Go. You know, it just removes a lot of the struggle that just comes with. There's a lot of hands that have to touch an individual before they're in court, right? You got the officer, you got the commissioner, you got the sheriffs that are holding them, and you got the pretrial people. There's just so many people that all are making decisions. Everybody's making a decision about this person and dealing with them in different environments, and maybe they get mad one day and want to cuss out me, or they want to cuss out a pretrial officer, whatever they do, whatever. Their score's low. Send them out. Go. You know, they won't cuss you anymore if you get rid of them. Just get rid of them. Send them out. Here's your court date. I'll text you. Go away. So, you know, just having that mindset of we're looking at the numbers. We're not looking at anything but the numbers for a decision like that. We're going to look at the data and we're going to the numbers, and then of course I have to consider a few other things. But just making sure that we can remove as many of the biases as possible. And I think data really does that. And so that, to me, that was one of the things I appreciated about it and wanted to really tackle was let's you know, get rid of all this noise and let's see what really is going on with the person. So.
Right.
Thanks. And Judge Long, I'm curious, in Knox County, how did the stakeholders decide what to do first? And you've done so much in Knox, and it's been incremental change ever since you started this program. But how did you decide what to start with?
I mean, really, CGI directed us. We wouldn't have known where to start. You start with the data, and then you sit down and you start with what sorts of offenses are we going to be comfortable with, which, you know, it's easy to say misdemeanors. We didn't say A, B, or C. It's like misdemeanors, including domestic assaults and including DUIs. I mean, we do every misdemeanor. And then we are still headed toward felonies, but because of the Supreme Court's order now with overcrowding and COVID, that's already started that, which has been really good. And it's probably going to be such an easy transition now because everybody was kind of holding up. Once you just determine what offenses you're going to allow, you all set up the different committees, but first there was a committee that said, what are we going to allow? Then there was a committee that was like, how many points are we going to give to this? And then we started with the data, creating our tool, which is the tool that creates the points that tells you whether or not to make a recommendation. And then we went from there. But oh gosh, there was something that Commissioner Manson was saying. I also wanted to comment on one of the benefits is there's more consistency. It's not like shopping for a particular commissioner, like, oh gosh, we know this commissioner is going to do this on a domestic, and this commissioner really seems to do, a really out of ordinary bond on a whatever particular type of charge. And so it's more consistent, which is more fair because it is with the tool. And I also wanted to say that there is ongoing everyday education and issues, even with pretrial. We're tweaking it all the time. And like, I'm having a meeting with commissioners on Thursday because I'm in DUI court this week, and I've seen several sorts of kind of strange, it'll be like a $500 appearance bond plus pretrial level 3. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? That's not the point of this. We're not the backup for the bonding company, and if we want to do a forfeiture, we're going to get the forfeiture in. If we're going to do pretrial. But, don't split the baby. And you've got different personalities involved and different educational opportunities with them. And we could probably do a better job. And I'm right now as presiding judge, we just rotate. It's just my turn for 6 months. I'm going to try to, set up maybe a monthly meeting with those commissioners and say, what are your concerns? What's your feedback to the judges? Do you feel like we're supporting you? Do you understand why we're doing this? And still, even though we've been doing it really just a year and a half, but it feels so, it's still, I'm sure, very uncomfortable to them to think about, that person seeing somebody potentially showing back up and being like, you just stole my stuff and you're out already. That doesn't seem right, but that's just, we can't put everybody in the jail before they're convicted of any criminal offense. So it's, that's where we started. And then where you end is really every day, even on the bench, I'm looking at the bonds and, asking, have you reported to pretrial? Are you paying your fees? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And kind of analyzing the commissioners and to some extent, and just because we supervise them and just saying, oh, well, this is consistent. I'm still seeing some inconsistencies, let's meet and talk. But all that being said, the judge and the commissioners never lose their discretion. Right. They can always evaluate when an officer comes, even if somebody has the best score in the world, if an officer is in front of them and saying, I need you to understand what I saw and how very alarming it was. It's not the narrative, it's the demeanor, it's the whatever, that the commissioner is the person who can always say, we're not looking at them and saying, you got this one right, you got this one wrong. If we see a pattern, we're going to approach it, but they always have the discretion to say, you know what, I got a feeling about this, and this officer conveyed to me something that is concerning, or there is a mental health issue and we believe we can get in touch with a parent, and I really want somebody to make contact with this person. I'm sorry they're going to be in jail, but I feel like with an attorney in court, they're going to be better served. So all those things, none of that has gone away. The discretion is still there, even for the judge. When I see him in court, if I think this isn't enough, I want more, I can change and add and do whatever. And the DAs can ask for more too. So, and the defense attorneys, and they can come in and ask for less. And one thing I wanted to mention too is, just as stakeholders, you're going to hear a lot of people say the bonding companies are going to hate you. The bonding companies don't like you. That's true. But we still utilize bonding companies, and they've got their purpose, and I'm glad they're still there. In Knox County, we need them, and obviously all those C and higher felonies, for sure we need them. And so it's unfortunate that it impacts them that way. I mean, this may sound callous, but I was thinking it's kind of like having a payphone business. I mean, it's just progress. I mean, it's just the reality of now with the ability to call people, to track people with a GPS, to do these different things, some of what used to be done by their companies is just no longer needed. And there is going to be pushback based on that, but there's got to be some progress involved and some changes made, and that's just it's a harsh reality, but it mainly involves the misdemeanors, and those aren't their bigger bonds anyway. But that's a reality of something you're going to face, and you'll hear people talking about elections, and when the DAs first started, they're like, I can't. It surprises me it's not in the paper. They don't talk about it. We're not that interesting. And maybe in a small jurisdiction, it would be more important. But if anybody gave me the opportunity to describe it, I think I could do so and make a narrative to the point that in any room and in any meetings, if I went out in the community to share it and explain it to organizations, that they would understand what we're doing and why.
And I want to chime in just on that, on the bonding companies. They complain. And I get it. I get it. That's their livelihood. The data collection becomes that much more important because a lot of they'll say, "Oh, it's not consistent. You guys did this one time, and then the other time you did this, and you did this one time, and you didn't do that the second time, and you all aren't doing it right. You all should just stop because you don't apply it consistently." And so being able to say, "Well, here's the numbers, and we do it consistently, and I can show you how, and this is this and this and this, and if you have any questions about a specific case, let us know, and I'm sure we can figure out what happened on that one specific case." They generally can't name a specific case, but having that data, and having someone who's in charge of it and collecting it and parsing it, so important.
Oddly enough, we've had more than one bondsman on pretrial.
Yes, we have.
It happens.
I'm sure they appreciated it then, right?
Right. They had the money. I don't know why we did that. Anyway.
I know. That.
One point.
Yeah, I
would make a point that you'll have defense attorneys, and I was one for 16 years, so I understand this, but that don't like pretrial on a DUI because they like just posting their $500 bond, and which they would post in cash if they were my client, and then they would just not worry about it. And so you'll get some pushback right at the beginning too. And I was like, look, pretrial is pretrial. We don't care if you have money or you don't. It's not just a poor people's option. It's everybody's option.
Right.
That's what you're going to be on. And they're like, well, they got to pay $20 a month. And I'm like, well, I'm not worried about it. They could pay their bond. They could pay their attorney. They're fine. And so those, you'll hear a little pushback on that, but then I don't hear that anymore. And I don't know what you do in Davidson County, but our pretrial used to automatically populate that you weren't to leave the state. And that was very annoying because I constantly have people coming in to get that amended and changed. And I don't think we're going to do that for misdemeanors anymore. It wouldn't have been a condition on, a prior bond. And so we're taking that off. And the things that we get, what they don't like because you get attorneys coming in a lot on it to get it lifted. So we're figuring that out. It's a system that's constantly being tweaked, but it just gets better, I think.
Thank you all. And then I have one more question for you before we switch to taking questions from our participants today. And I want to switch gears a little bit because I've heard all of you mention behavioral health. So I'm curious what your counties have done to address this unique population. And Diana, I know you mentioned that Nashville has a new facility that might be opening up soon. So maybe you could start.
Yeah. Our behavioral care unit, it's going to be really, really amazing. Basically, what's going to happen is when they come into jail or whatever, they will get evaluated by a mental health specialist. And if they do need further assistance, then what they will do is they will immediately be put into a 30-day program. We'll get them back on their meds or whatever it is that they need, and then their case will be nolly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be expunged too, the way I understand it.
Right, and and that's the more people that we see come through pretrial like this, like I was saying earlier, I mean, you want to help these people. We want to help regular people. We really want to help these people. And this new behavioral care unit is going to be awesome, amazing. We can't wait to get it started.
And it's kind of a diversionary booking process. If someone qualifies to go to the behavioral care center and they opt to do so, then instead of going through the regular booking channels and all that, they're going to go to this mental health operation, which is actually, it's in the jail, but it's in a completely separate wing. And they have holding areas and things like that back there, you know, bunks and everything. They can house them back there, and it's not so jail-y feeling. But really, because what they're trying to do is, you know, get these people connected with services and doctors and, you know, people that can help get them back on track so we don't keep seeing them. So we're excited to see this start working.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. And Commissioner Manson, is there anything that you wanted to add about Davidson County's diversion options?
No, I really think that it's a great facility. I toured it when they first finished building it, and just seeing it's something different that I think is needed. You've got officers out here that you know are not trained for mental health, right? I mean, this is not their job. They're not there to do that, and so giving them an option to say, okay, I think this person needs some assistance, and they can just say that to us or to booking, whoever they need to say it to, and shift them over to another part of the building so they can get the help they need. I mean, I think that's ideal. I was just on a panel a couple of days ago with actually a couple of Knox County officers, and that was one of them specifically said, we're not trained for mental health. We don't know. We don't, we're increasingly having to deal with that, and we don't have the wherewithal, just because that's not why we're out here. That's not our purpose. And so us having a building, just the starting of something we can do, and I hope it expands. I hope we get more and more and more access to behavioral health, because especially some of our repeat offenders, you start learning names, and it's a mental health problem, and they can't regulate it. They can't deal with it on their own. They need some assistance. And so rather than throwing them in a jail cell where they just don't talk to anybody, let's give them some help. So I'm glad we have it.
Judge Long, what types of diversion options are available in Knox County for people with behavioral health issues?
We have something called the BUCK program, which is like that, where when an officer who's been trained, they all get some sort of training, and it doesn't take that much training, obviously, when you're in court, because you can notice it pretty quickly. But when they can tell that there's issues with mental health, they can ask the participant if they'd like to go to the BUCK, and then the BUCK will take them in, and that's partnered with Helen Ross McNabb, which is our bigger mental health provider in Knox County, and they go there, and I think if they go for 3 days, enough to get them stabilized and to divert them to their next best option for treatment, then they'll dismiss those cases. I don't have the statistics on that. Our DA and our Sheriff's Department have been very instrumental in it. I don't feel like it's a roaring success. I don't know. I know that the frequent flyers don't want to go. A lot of times they're like, I just didn't go to court and enter a plea, time served, and go about my business, but then there are people that we see 15 times in a month, and then all of a sudden they decide, they just get tired of it, and they'll go and they'll be successful. So, any success story is a success. So I can't say it's large numbers. I mean, this is just an overall problem. When they closed the mental health facility here in Knox County, it's just a shame, and it's just so short-sighted, but it is what it is, and the jail is our largest mental health provider in Knox County, no doubt about it. And I don't know how they handle it, because it's hard enough for me in court with just 1 or 2 a day, maybe a misdemeanor, or it's very difficult and disruptive and agitating to the individual, and sad. And so, everybody's coming up with ideas, but there just aren't enough resources, but we're working toward it. But I don't know the statistics right now for the success of that program. It's not a lot of beds. And so hopefully that's something maybe we'll focus on again. I haven't been to one of those meetings in a while, and I'll ask, but it's out there at least.
Great, thank you. And I want to take time now to ask you a few questions we've gotten from participants. And please, if you have questions, now would be a great time. Type them into your questions tab, and I will have a chance to read them out loud. We have a few minutes here. I do have a few questions already. First one is, do any of you know of a tool that is used prior to arrest to determine if the person should be arrested or not? Or do you use a tool that helps with citation in lieu of arrest based on the risk assessment score?
Go ahead.
I'll chime in. Not really. We sort of leave that up to the discretion of the officer on the scene. It's such a in the moment kind of decision, right? There's not really a call that a tool I don't think could make. You're looking at circumstances, you're looking at the person, you're looking at the danger to the community, you're looking at so many factors sort of all at once. And if you're not standing right there, there's no way really to say, well, there's a 3 on that and a 2 on that and a 5 on this, so we should arrest them. I mean, I just don't think it would. I don't think it would function. You want, and 2, I think you want your officers to be able to say, you know what, take your citation and go home. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to arrest you and deal with that. And yeah, I don't think a tool really would work. I'll let Judge Long talk, but I don't think a tool really would do it.
No, there's no tool pre-arrest. I don't think that's conceivable really. That's just going to be at officer's discretion. In terms of citations versus a warrant, the statute says you should cite whenever possible. We've had an ongoing problem in Knox County. Our city we have the city police department and the county sheriff's department. I don't know how all the jurisdictions are, but our KPD across the state has a much lower citation average than any other municipality. We issue way more warrants than we would like to, which is one of the reasons why we had to do pretrial or really needed to do pretrial. And I think some of it has got something to do with the IT, the technology involved and how they want to do the citations and how that corresponds with the system in our clerk's office. And it's unfortunate. They're working on it. But we always suggest, that follow the statute whenever possible and cite whenever possible. And then the disadvantage is if they're cited, they're not going to be on pretrial anyway. They're not going to be on anything. They're just going to be cited. They're going to have a future court date. They're going to show up in Knox County and be booked. Some of the other counties don't book citations. And then they're going to appear in court and that is their level of supervision, nothing. But, we can't, that's functional. What happens is many times on our citations with COVID, especially if they fail to appear, we might issue an attachment, but we'll put them on pretrial, trying to just get an officer involved with this person, a pretrial officer, to get them in court. We don't necessarily issue an appearance bond because it's something that would have qualified for pretrial, and we just started over that way. Hopefully they show up and it's no problem. We get an attorney, but if they don't, we try to get them connected with pretrial.
Next question, and this is again for both Davidson and Knox County. Do you have specific charges that do not qualify for pretrial release? And if so, how did you come to that decision? Judge Long, do you want to start us off on that one?
For us, when we preliminarily started looking into it, we were hesitant about offenses of violence like a domestic assault or an assault, and then obviously DUIs because they can be so devastatingly bad if it goes wrong. But we made a determination after a lot of discussion to go ahead and agree to pretrial on everything. That's a misdemeanor. In terms of felonies, the DAs and the Sheriff's Department initially just said, we would bargain, we would bargain. We're like, if you'll give us domestic assaults, we will not ask for felonies. And so that was our agreement early on, but the DA has indicated, and per the judge's order, and we've met on this multiple times with COVID, that we're doing now, because of the Supreme Court order, not yet as a part of agreed pretrial releases, but we're doing nonviolent felonies. And we had always considered moving on to D&E felonies, especially thefts over $1,000, anything like that, theft of a vehicle, a Walmart theft, burglary type of thing. So we had always kind of anticipated moving into D&Es. Nothing above a C right now, and I don't anticipate ever going there. Although those individuals will be in court, in jail on bond, the victims won't show up, and as a concession and as part of the negotiations, we'll call in pretrial and we'll agree to a pretrial release level 3 because of a state's request for a reset after the statutory dates that they're entitled to preliminary hearing. So we do actually have felons at that level on pretrial, and they're doing just fine, but that's not automatic.
Yeah, and we have a exclusion list as well. It was, for a while, it was ever changing, just depending on what email went out and who got angry what day, and there was a revolving list. There was some key things. C felonies or higher are disqualified automatically from pretrial. Some D&E, we decided that if there was not an individual victim on a D&E felony, that they could qualify for pretrial. So we sort of specified it that way. We did decide to disqualify domestics, which sometimes I agree with, sometimes I don't, just kind of depending on the circumstances of the domestic. I'm of the opinion that, like you, Judge Long, if misdemeanors, I think they benefit more from having that contact and having somebody getting them to go to court and checking in on them and forcing them to check in. And I'm a proponent of that sort of supervision, as opposed to just you pay your $250 or $500 for your domestic, and then you stay for 12 hours, you pay your money, and then you're just out, and nobody knows what's going on until maybe you show up in court, maybe you don't, maybe the victim decides to not prosecute. I mean, there's so many factors that happen like that in domestics, which is why I think pretrial would be good for domestic as opposed to bad, because of they could call and say, hey, defend, don't remember you have court tomorrow. Oh, she said she wasn't going to prosecute. And then they can say, well, still come to court tomorrow, because the judge will not be happy if you don't show up, whether she prosecutes or not. So just having those conversations with people, I think, really would help. That was, though, I think one of the concessions we had with the DA and the prosecutors and the judges, and everybody could have worked together on that list. But yeah, we have a rather long list. I have it mostly memorized at this point, but we referred to it a lot in the early days.
Jessica, for people who aren't familiar, I do want to reiterate too, though, that doesn't mean every domestic or every DUI gets out on pretrial. First of all, they're going to look and see, do they have a prior offense and conviction in the last, 11 months and 29 days? And are we looking at a violation of probation? And there's a certain number of repeat offenders that unfortunately make up a lot of our docket, and those people are not going to get out. They're going to be, they're going to set a bond high enough to keep them in jail until the DA has time to file the violation of probation, or if they pick up a new charge. All the tool that you'll learn about will encompass all of those points. So if they have prior failures to appear, if they have had convictions recently or whatever, all of that, their criminal history, everything's going to be considered. So there are misdemeanors who don't qualify for pretrial, and if they do, they might qualify at a very high level. So it's not just everybody who gets a new charge. Everybody is evaluated by their own personal criminal history, potential violations of probation, holds out of other counties. We might pretrial somebody that's got a hold out of Davidson. We take them in, we hold them for Davidson to come get them, but we're not holding them in our bond. So it's not everything. There's always all these other factors looked at.
Yeah, and I think it's important when you start talking about these tools, you'll start talking about, well, these excluded. You start saying all these things, and everything is at the discretion of the commissioner. Every statement we make, there's a little star after every statement we make, at the discretion of the commissioner in Davidson County. So I might say, yeah, that person's excluded, unless I decide I don't want them excluded, then I can just force it, and then they'll call me and say, "You sure you wanted it?" And I'll have to, say whatever I want. Yes, I'm sure. Let them out. So those kinds of things, conversations happen. But yeah, everything is with that little asterisk of at the discretion of the commission.
Of course, yes. And just to clarify, these exclusions, they take place after the risk assessment is already scored and before you make the pretrial decision?
It sort of all happens at the same time. I would say you're sort of looking at it all together. So the score is there. The score, everybody gets a score, no matter who they are or what's going on. You get a score. We look at our matrix and they make a recommendation based on the matrix. Then we look at the exclusion list and say, okay, yeah, but they're on probation, or they have a hold, or whatever the things are that may prevent them, even though they had ones and zeros and qualified for pretrial. Well, yeah, but Knox County or wherever wants them, so we're going to call them, make sure, hey, you guys gonna come get them? Yeah, we're coming to get them. Okay, and then we keep them. So it all flows at the same time. There's not where we do one thing and then the other. It all just sort of happens. So the officer may come and testify that, yeah, we arrested so and so, and this is a citable offense. He just had maybe public intox, or maybe he had some paraphernalia or something, not a really big deal, but he's got a hold out of Madison County, so we had to bring him in. And so all that sort of happens all at once.
And the score is going to take into consideration their prior criminal history.
Mm-hmm.
So say they've had multiple domestic assault convictions, or they've had felony convictions.
Mm-hmm.
All that's done before the commissioner gets the score.
Right.
That's spit out on a form that pretrial has taken their name upon their arrest and gotten all that background information really quickly and effectively. They plug it into the score, into the tool, and then that score is going to let the commissioner know, if you've got a really high score, why. They'll give them some additional data on it. And so, yes, it's taken into effect before any commissioner even considers a bond. Somebody's looked at their prior criminal history. They've looked at their prior failure to appear. They've looked at lots of factors. And that's what you negotiate and figure out at the front end. What do we think is important? Why do we think this contributes to future failure to appear or new criminal activity? Okay, then we're going to assign that a high number, and that's done, and you don't even have to think about it. It's just done for you.
Right.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. I wish that we had more time for questions, but we really don't. We need to wrap it up. But one more quick one. Have any of you talked to other stakeholders who might be a little bit skeptical about pretrial in Tennessee, and would you be willing to?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we
yeah.
would. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Anybody that wants to talk about it, I'm happy to all the good, all the bad. Yeah, we will tell it all and let you make your mind up. Yeah, absolutely.
I would do the same. I mean, I've only talked to our stakeholders in Knox County, but if anybody ever wanted information or wanted somebody to come and, outline kind of how our process works and what we think about it, of course, yeah, be happy to.
We really appreciate that. And thank you all so much for being here and sharing your experiences. It's been so helpful. And I think we probably could talk about this for another hour, but unfortunately we have to wrap up.
Thank you for participating in this webinar series. OCJP is committed to improving pretrial systems in local jurisdictions throughout the state in a data-driven, evidence-based, and sustainable way. I hope the information shared will help you identify the needs in your pretrial systems and prepare you to start solving those challenges. We here at OCJP are here to help by providing funding for jurisdictions interested in prioritizing pretrial justice. The link to our solicitations page is now on your screen. I invite you to visit the page and see if there are any relevant opportunities. We currently are funding several $50,000 grants to help kickstart pretrial reform efforts at the local level. As you heard earlier from Judge Long, there's a lot of pre-work needed before you can get a pretrial program off the ground, and so these grants are designed to assist with that pre-work and the pre-planning. The solicitation is written in a very broad way to help reduce roadblocks. For example, money could be used to engage in planning and research activities for pretrial program development, purchasing equipment such as computers, records management systems, software, etc., to help you with that relevant data tracking and funding work groups that would engage in strategic planning, performing information analysis, or engaging a technical assistance provider to assist you with planning. The worksheet that we provided during Webinar 2 is a great resource to set goals for your pretrial system and how state funding can potentially help you reach those goals. This worksheet is attached under the Handouts tab in your control panel. Although we are wrapping up the webinar series, the event page will still be active and the link is on the screen. Remember to check out interviews with National Pretrial Experts Judge Ronald Adrian and NAPSA President-elect Spurgeon Kennedy if you haven't already. They offer their insights on pretrial best practices and straightforward steps to improve local pretrial systems. We also recorded each of the live webinars and will make the links available on the website. Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for more information about those pretrial networking sessions. I hope to see you there. Goodbye.